Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit is supposedly shopping Travis Hamonic and Erik Gustafsson. What reason could there to be shopping depth?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty, we're a few days behind on this one, but with the everyday format, there's only so much we can cover per episode, especially when the team is playing every other day. But late last week, Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period, I think it was actually on Daily Faceoff, had reported that the Red Wings are actively shopping Erik Gustafsson and Travis Hamonic, were names that he had heard out there, along with Jonathan Berggren, who we'll talk about as well. But we want to focus mostly on Hamonic and Gustafsson situation here. And we're going to ask the question as to why this makes sense for the Red Wings. You know, what purpose could they have for shopping, NHL veterans, right? Guys who you could call up barring injury. We'll also talk about the value that these players may have in a trade, as well as kind of talking as a bigger picture-wise about the defense as a whole right now, as it is surprisingly been pretty solid. Like you almost hesitate to say that.
I don't even really want to say that out loud, but
right. But I mean, there's a reason why those guys are in the AHL right now or a healthy scratch. Right. So we'll talk about all that before we get into tomorrow's episode, obviously, which would be a game preview, as well as just kind of talking about the season so far through 6 games. But that'll be tomorrow's episode. So before we get to any of that, though, got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Scotty, as I previously noted, Dave Pagnotta mentioned late last week that the Detroit Red Wings were shopping Travis Hamonic and Erik Gustafsson. And I think a lot of people's initial reactions to that were probably, that's a good thing. But it is also true that if you do trade those guys, you are losing NHL caliber depth. So why don't you kind of explain to the people why it's a good thing, or it could be a good thing if you trade these guys away, and why Steve Yzerman would even be doing so to begin with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the hope is that you can free up some space. There's honestly a decent amount of motivating factors here, I guess. One is that you hope you can free space within the organization or even on the NHL roster for some of these guys, right? And that is, I don't think, a bad thing at this point. Like the Wings are at a point right now where if they were to trade one of these guys that is getting scratched some nights or playing, bottom role minutes, and that opens the door for, I guess the blue line is maybe a different conversation, but if it happens on the forward group, that opens the door maybe for a Mazur to make his well, I guess he did technically make his NHL debut, but for Mazur to get back on the NHL roster, or, when Danielson's healthy again, kind of open the door and give them a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to adding those caliber of guys. Defensively, I think you just kind of have a lot of bodies there that aren't all going to play. And I think that the positive thing that indicates, I guess I'll say, is that if you're comfortable enough to trade those guys at the bottom, then clearly you are comfortable with the 6 guys that are dressing most nights, right? And you're confident in the production that you've gotten out of them. So for me, I mean, this is a no-brainer. It also doesn't mean that any of these are actually going to happen, right? Like, what kind of a trade market do guys that are, some cases, literally in the AHL right now and cleared waivers really have, right? There's it doesn't mean that all these guys are definitely going to get moved, but I like the proactive approach of, if we can clear and even get anything, even if it is just low-end return, it would clear up some cap, free up a roster space for somebody else that might be more productive there. And it's not a pillar of the team right now that's consistently at least contributing to the overall success of the unit. So it's something when you lay it out, it's like, okay, yeah, no duh. But I mean, when the report happens, it certainly perks your ears up.
I think a lot of fans too immediately see that, and a lot of these players were scapegoated for long stretches with the Red Wings, right? And people look for players to point the finger at and blame for why a team is playing so poorly. It's Justin Holl, Erik Gustafsson. In one game, it was Travis Hamonic. Hell, we came on here, although he did have a really bad game. But obviously, losses it's a team effort. So when Red Wings fans hear that two of those guys are being shopped, they're like, oh, these guys they'll find a new scapegoat. So that, to me, that's not why I get excited about the idea. Because obviously, you never want to see these guys lose their jobs. And these are guys who are, and Tom McClellan talked about it, it's the nature of the NHL. These guys are in the lineup until a young player inevitably usurps them and finds the spot on the lineup, and that's what happened this year. You had 3 rookies make the team, pushed a couple of NHL veterans out. The youth factor, obviously, that you've previously noted is a big one. Like that just kind of reinforces and reassures the NHL fan base, the Red Wings fans, that these young players are earning their spot on the roster and are kind of here to stay. I don't really care much for you don't need more cap space. You have some of the most cap space. It'll give you an extra $1 million here, or $2.5 million here for Erik Gustafsson. For me, I think the biggest motivating factor is you're just trying to do right by these players. Sure. Because even at the AHL level, remember, there's a veteran limit. So not all these vets you have a lot of vets on that team, right? You've signed a bunch of guys who have NHL level experience, even if they're, as you would put in baseball terms, quadruple A players like Ian Mitchell and John Leonard. You could only have so many veterans suit up in any AHL game. So even at the Grand Rapids level, these guys aren't playing every single night. And guys, especially guys like Erik Gustafsson, they're NHL caliber players. They just got pushed out of the lineup, which is a good problem for Detroit to have, but it's a bad problem if you're Erik Gustafsson and you could be playing in the NHL elsewhere. So I think for me, that's the biggest motivating factor. You're just trying to do right by these players and say, hey, you got pushed out, but I'll try to find you a new home so you can continue your playing career, because one, that is just the right thing to do, but it also reflects well on the organization. We're not going to just bury you. You can get ice time elsewhere. You can get power play time elsewhere. Your career is not over. It hasn't worked out here, which we've seen a lot of. That's why you traded Tarasenko to Minnesota. You did right by the player. You needed to change the scenery. It didn't work. And thank God Minnesota was gracious enough to just take him off your hands, all that money. So I think that's the biggest motivating factor for me, because guys and we'll talk about this in segment 2, I think guys like Erik Gustafsson do have some value. Not a lot, but some value. Guys like Hamonic, I don't know. Guy like Berggren, who I don't know at this point what the value is. I love the kid, but he is like the definition, I would feel, of that quadruple A player we were just talking about, where he is so good at the AHL level, and you want him so bad to come up to the NHL and just tear it up, and then he's just kind of a in the lineup, out of lineup player.
In wins above replacement, he is replacement.
Right. He is the replacement level. He is the Akil Baddoo of the Detroit Red Wings. He comes up, gives you serviceable player. Hey, am I wrong? In terms of guys
I get
up
it.
and down.
He's not a guy that he's in the lineup and you're like, wow, he's losing us games. No, he's a fine, fourth line forward. Yeah. He doesn't do anything overly wrong. It's just he doesn't do anything overwhelmingly right either.
Replacement level player. Yeah, it's not an insult. Akil Baddoo's built himself a nice career.
For sure.
But he's just not a guy who sticks in the NHL for too terribly long. And I with Jonathan Berggren, he's been in the NHL for basically 2 full seasons with a gap in between there. And I have yet to see, anyway, I don't want to turn this into Jonathan Berggren slander. I like the kid a lot. I really want him to work out, but obviously he's in that report for a reason. So we're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about what kind of value these guys do have, and then we'll talk about, is this defense even any good? So let's head to a break and come back to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love using FanDuel because it gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are going to move on here to talk about the Travis Hamonic, and I know what you're looking at me. We'll just...
Okay.
So we'll save it. Travis Hamonic and Erik Gustafsson value, where that value is at currently. So let's start with Hamonic, because I think this is the easier of the two to assess when it comes to your belief on what kind of return you could get for Travis Hamonic. What do you think, if anything, can you get?
Yeah, I think if anything, I think it's likely. Again, like you're doing this deal from the Wings' perspective just to free up a roster spot and not, like you'd rather pay that amount of money to somebody who maybe could be more productive. Like it, and if you can get anything to free up a roster spot and not free up a roster spot for a buyout and no money, then there you go. Like that would be why they would do it. So yeah, I don't expect a lot. I don't expect really much of anything. It's pretty much just, does anybody want him? Maybe like a seventh rounder or something like that. But even then, like I feel like the deal is more just like, hey, we'll take the money like off of your hands and free up a roster spot for you.
Yeah, so for me, this is so easy. It's future considerations. Like you're trading Hamonic for nothing to just give him a shot at a different NHL roster if you can find a playing partner. And I think there are teams out there. I mean, but we've said this about Justin Holl for 2 or 3 off seasons now. Like there are teams out there who are just looking for bodies, and he is a body at cheap with lots of NHL experience who, if you need to, can put him in a bigger role. Although I don't think personally, I don't know if he's physically capable of a top 4 position anymore, but I know last year with Ottawa he was playing at times second pair minutes. But I think he can still be a serviceable third pair defenseman or seventh defenseman, which he is now with Detroit, on a rebuilding team that just needs bodies, right? Erik Gustafsson, I think, is the harder of the two, because I do think there is, even though he had a poor year last year, I do think there is more in Erik Gustafsson than we've seen. I don't think his fall off it's kind of like where I am at with Tarasenko too, and I haven't actually checked in. I could be completely proven wrong, but he's 33 years old, so he's definitely on the downside of his career. He's not like over the hill yet. He's not that far removed from pretty solid season with the New York Rangers, where he had 31 points, 38 points the year before with the Washington Capitals. Like he's put up decent production in recent history. So it was just last year he had kind of a down year, in which he did pick it up after Todd McClellan took over. He only had 16 points last year, but I think 12 of those came after McClellan joined the roster as the head coach. So for him, I don't think you could get a lot, but maybe you could get a 6th or a 7th round pick, because a lot of teams are also going to recognize this is a dump. Like you're getting this player a new change of scenery, so you're basically saying that you're giving up on the player. This is what the team would argue. So they're going to be like, you're not going to get like a 4th round pick out of us. But if you can get a 6th or a 7th and recoup some kind of value on him, I think that'd be good. But at the same time, if you just deal him and get him off the books flat out for future considerations, I'm not going to throw a fit about that either, because you're just admitting it's not working out and you're giving him a chance to do right by the player in a new organization.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some merit to that too, just the fact that there is a little bit more value for Gustafsson. There's probably somebody out there who would put him, I mean, whether it is, ultimately a third pair, power play 2 type of situation, or even a bigger role if, somebody on maybe one of the teams toward the bottom of the standings needs to fill a role like that. So yeah, I mean, with none of these guys are you giving up, or are you receiving rather a ton? Like this is going to be, you're talking about marginal returns here, but yeah, I think, in a perfect world, you get maybe a little bit more of something for Gustafsson. But at the end of the day, market determines value, right? Like,
right. The market's not hot on those guys.
If nobody else in the NHL is chomping at the bit to add him, or if only one other team is interested, then you're ultimately, if the roster spot is that valuable to you, you're going to just take whatever you can get and move on.
Yeah, we can talk to you about Jonathan Berggren, where this is a guy whose name has been out there for offseason after offseason after offseason. It's kind of trade bait for the Detroit Red Wings. A little bit before, where it was like there was still that, can he work out at the NHL level? He could be a guy you package together with the upside still, and having had the track record of having a lot of success in the AHL, be a kind of one of those young guys that another team can take a flyer on and see if they can make it work. Now it's more about, again, kind of finding him a home where he can get regular NHL minutes, because right now with Finney and MBN surging onto the roster, he's finding himself out of the lineup. And I think, we've seen enough of Berggren to kind of know what he is, and I think a fourth line or third line scoring winger is kind of where his value is, but there's just so much youth in this organization that is trying to push onto the roster, along with a few more proven veterans, that he finds himself as the odd man out. And right now we're seeing that. Obviously he played on Sunday because of the Patrick Kane injury, but it's been him and Soderblom cycling in and out of the lineup. So with him, it's a similar argument where you're just trying to do right by the player and give him an opportunity if you end up trading him. And again, I think you can get something for Berggren, because like the Gustafsson situation, but even to a bigger extent, where maybe he doesn't have the NHL track record that Gustafsson does, where Gustafsson has had a 60-point season in his career. Berggren is also younger. I will say he's not like a prospect anymore. This is his third full NHL season, and he's from the 2018 draft, so he's the same age as Zadina and Joe Veleno, but he's still young enough that a team could take a flyer, that he could use a change of scenery and kind of explode. Just a month ago, we were hearing from Jeff Merrick talking about how Joe Veleno could really break out this year if Montreal can unlock him. So there's still obviously a subset of hockey, at least in the media, not that that matters, that believes that these guys from the 2018 draft class could still have another level to unlock. And if you can get a team that can buy out with Berggren, maybe you get a 6th round pick and recoup a little bit of that value.
Yeah. He's 25, man. I think he probably is what he is at this point. I think that maybe there's a team doing that, but in the same breath, this is a guy that got demoted after playing over 60 games at the NHL level from one year to the next, right? This obviously a couple seasons ago, not referring to this season, but that happened when he was younger, and we haven't seen a huge step forward taken. I just really don't. I'm fine with him in the current role that he has. I want to, make that
he's
clear
fine
as
there.
well. I have no issue with him being a fourth line guy or 13th forward type of guy. He fills that role well, but again, if you are trying to free up roster spots and you think
for
that
Danielson and Mazer,
right, exactly,
guys are right on the corner.
If you can free up a roster spot to add those guys and get, even if it is a minimal return, something back for opening up that roster spot, then it would be ridiculous not to look into that. So, ultimately, this is just kind of where the Wings are at. And this is a good thing. Again, this is a positive development in my eyes, that top to bottom, they have a solidified group of people that they know that they can rely on at the NHL level, and the outside of that group, they're willing to part ways with for an opportunity for somebody else that maybe can produce more to kind of slide in.
Yeah, in addition to that too, because the conversation for a long time was packaging Berggren, and maybe that is kind of still what Yzerman is going for, because all offseason we heard the Red Wings are still in the market, and that's still what the conversation is the Red Wings are still looking for offense. They're still looking for everything. So maybe because of Berggren's age, he is a player you can still package as part of a bigger deal to acquire somebody else. Right now, I don't know what the goal is. Red Wings are starting incredibly hot. The young players are having a huge impact towards the team's culture. But I think if anyone is going to be part of a bigger package right now to acquire somebody else, out of the three we're talking about, it's going to be Berggren. Berggren is kind of that, like, he's just that guy right now. He's just that guy that everyone talks about in trades. I love the kid so much. He's such a personality. He seems like a great kid. I really want him to work out the NHL level. But he's just the kid who's constantly in those conversations for, if you do a trade, here's the guy that we'd be willing to give up. And we mostly from the fan base, but it's fed because of the reporting we hear, and this is another one of those instances. Scotty, let's head to another break. When we return, we'll talk about the defense as a whole, because we're only in this situation because ASP and a couple other young kids made the roster, and through 6 games, I mean, is this defense good? We'll answer that question. Maybe. I don't know. In a second. Yeah, talk to you guys today about Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything, and if you've ever used these excuses before, it's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. When it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships directly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL. And don't forget to use your code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses and start making moves. Also, got to talk to you guys today about Monarch Money. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why you should start using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's going to help you organize your accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle on your investments without having to ever touch a spreadsheet. You're going to love the fact that you can review everything with your partner, see your shared goals, and make better financial decisions together. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKDOWNNHL for half off your first year. Almost made it through. Had to stumble right at the end. Scotty, segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. So this defensive core is playing a lot better than I expected. And part of that might be the team's play style as a whole and being exposed to less high-danger opportunities to have to recover. But we saw, especially against Edmonton and the best player on the planet, this team and this defense make quite a few good plays. And I think, obviously, this starting at the top pair. Ben Sherratt and Moritz Seider have been good as usual. Continuing to take the toughest deployments on the team, and we haven't gotten the data for the rest of the league, but I imagine it's still up there with some of the toughest in the NHL, getting more defensive zone deployments than the rest of their contemporaries on the team, playing big minutes. Moritz Seider playing 28 a couple times this season already. But big shout out to Ben Sherratt, who has piled together 3 consecutive games. Like, we expect that out of Moritz Seider. Like, he's just the guy for the Detroit Red Wings. He's their number 1 defenseman, and he's been everything as advertised, again, early on this season. But Ben Sherratt's another one of those guys who I feel continually kind of gets lambasted, and sometimes deservedly so, even though we believe he's playing above his slot, being asked to do more than he maybe should be. He's had a really good stretch of at least 3 games. He had 5 blocks against Florida. He had an end-to-end rush against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then against Edmonton, he was all over the place, doing a lot right all the time. He's had a good start to the season, and if the Red Wings defense is going to be good, that top pair needs Ben Chiarot to be his best self. My guy knows it's a contract year.
His best self. He's just being, truly his best self. Yeah, man, I think a lot of credit goes to Chiarot. I also think a lot of credit goes to ASP and Edvinsson. I mean, going into this year, my biggest concern was not the top pair. It was obviously a little bit, we talked plenty about Ben Chiarot and how that may look and whatnot, but like Seider's on the top pair, and you knew he was going to get tough deployments, and you knew that he was going to do pretty well in them. To me, the depth was always such a concern, and that's something I was a broken record about all summer, to the point where it was annoying. And now we have Edvinsson and ASP on the same pair. And like over the summer, I didn't anticipate ASP to be on the NHL roster, and certainly not in the top 4. So I think that is such a huge development here, as you have Edvinsson taking another step forward, established in the NHL now, looks really, really good. And ASP is holding his own in that role, which also then makes the third pair more competitive, because you can use any of the, revolving door of veterans kind of down there, and Aljo down in the third pair, and that can be pretty respectable and solid. So yeah, man, like I really think that has a lot to do with it, is the depth is not nearly as thin as certainly I thought it was going to be a month ago, just because of the rookies that made this team. But I also think, obviously, all the credit goes to the players, because I think it's safe to say they've exceeded. I also think, to also be fair, you brushed past it there originally. I do think that the play style is a significant factor in this. That is something that, again, like Edmonton, they deserve a ton of praise for that game. I'm not taking anything away from them. If anything, I'm adding to the praise. Edmonton is one of the more high-powered offenses in the league, and they had like 6 shots in the first period. Like that matters. And that, obviously, if you have less opportunities and you're not just sagging back and hoping to do well in the in the defensive zone, if you meet them in the neutral zone and prevent that entirely, then you're not going to have as many opportunities to give up high danger shots like they did last year. So I think that all of those things I just kind of word vomited about all are pretty big factors for what we see so far.
Let me give you some numbers, Scotty.
You know what? I was hoping you would.
All right, here we go. So Moritz Seider, obviously being Moritz Seider, he has an expected goal share on his own of 52%. So an expected goal share in his minutes and his usage of 52% is insanely good. He's looking very good at the start of the season. But if you go to the Corsi, which is just shot attempt share, amount of shots fired for your team versus against your team in any given night, right? The only defenseman, excluding Travis Hamonic, because he's only played 1 game, the only defenseman with a Corsi 4 percentage, a shot attempt share at 5-on-5 beneath 50%, is Ben Chiarot, and his number is 49.3. So he's not even getting crushed. And that, again, speaks to the system. The Red Wings as a whole, because they're playing a heavy forecheck game, interrupting plays before they can begin for the other team, have the puck more, which means when you have the puck more, you're shooting the puck more and not facing as many against. The Red Wings as a whole, everybody but Ben Chiarot on this defense has a shot attempt share over 50%. Now, as pairs, it gets a little bit different, and when you look at expected goals, it definitely drastically changes. So ASP, for example, has an expected goal share of just 46%, which is certainly lower than you would want it. Part of that is growing pains. But that Edvinsson and ASP share, going back to what you were just saying, the ascendance of ASP has it's had that early on in the season, big caveat there, has had that ripple effect that we were talking about needing when you could hypothetically get Gavrikov or Keandre Miller in the offseason. The ability to pair ASP with Edvinsson and have ASP actually look competent, even if he struggled defensively at times, but be put in big moments and stand his ground and even at times look good, has then allowed you to take Albert Johansson, put him back to his natural left side on the third pair, giving that third pair a lot more depth. And after the first game, we were a little scared, right? Because they had a bad first game with Travis Hamonic. They supplant him with JBD, and all of a sudden, JBD and Albert Johansson, who we were a little trepid, little scared to have out there because they play similar games, they look good. Now, deployment is still something you want to keep in mind. Both of those two bottom pairs are fairly sheltered. The ASP Simon Edvinsson line faces the softest competition out of any of the three pairs.
As dramatic, though. I mean, that's a low bar, but
early
not
on
as
in the
dramatic
season,
as it was.
Early on in the season, Edvinsson and ASP take the easiest competition, and Albert Johansson and JBD take the most offensive zone deployments, and again, the smallest amount of minutes. Edvinsson and ASP are playing huge minutes, don't get me wrong, so they're still going to be facing tough competition and be put in tough situations. But when it's the top line out there, it's always, and of course it should be, always be Sider, and then it's Edvinsson out there in big minutes facing weaker competition, and then Albert Johansson and JBD basically exclusively see the offensive zone, but they're both really good puck-moving defensemen. They both play in the offensive zone pretty well. So just the ability to add ASP into the lineup and have him play well in big moments, for the most part, besides a couple growing pains, has given this defense so much more flexibility. Will it stay this way? I don't know. There's going to be growing pains. I'm assuming if they don't trade Hamonic soon, they'll probably get him back in the lineup, so we'll see a couple different looks. But through 6 games, this defense and this play style are looking so much more competent than I think we anticipated going into the season.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.